Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, to create massive awakened impact for millions of souls around the planet, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to have you here. Another amazing show, Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. And today we have the Energy Scan Show. And you guys remember, like every single one of these episodes, when I'm tuning in, that's why you want to listen to every Energy Scan Show, in my opinion, everyone that calls to you intuitively, at least. So is to listen to everyone, because in every single show, there's going to be these nuggets, right? Because I'm not just doing energy scanning only. I'm giving business perspectives to help you build your business wherever you are as a spiritual entrepreneur, coach, trainer, healer, etc. And I'm looking at the energy. And honestly, 100% of the time, when I do this in front of audiences, everybody always says, "Oh my God, what you shared with that person up on stage, it's exactly what I needed to hear too." So make sure you listen in deeply, and you're going to get to know somebody who's amazing. I'm going to be introducing Steve in a moment. He's an amazing being. He's brilliant. He's got incredible insights, and you're going to learn that even just through the process of the show. You're going to learn how awesome and how many strengths and gifts he has to bring in the world. You're going to want to connect with him. So we're going to get started in just one moment. Do you want to meditate and make money? Let it be simple. Let it be easy. Let it be fun. Go to yoursacredpurpose.com and get your free Meditate Make Money meditation today. All right. Well, Steve, I'm excited to get started with you and dive in for the show today.
It's great to be here, Daniel. Thanks for inviting me.
Sure thing. So you have maybe the shortest bio that I've seen so far, and I was just so glad to see that. Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate short bios here and there for sure. So, okay. So Steve Garvin thought his story was worthless until he discovered he'd been playing a role that wasn't his. When he became the author of his own story, Steve's self-worth and self-compassion escalated to unknown heights. Now he helps authors and speakers enrich their stories. So you're going to want to know about his background, which he hasn't put in his bio, but I like it because it's going to make him more mysterious, and you want to know. He's got a really very interesting background. The guy is a powerhouse, so make sure you're tuning in to gain from his wisdom just by him sharing about what he does. It's going to illuminate your consciousness. So Steve, that brings me to that point of talking to you about letting the audience know a little bit about who you are in your business and what you do and where you are with your business. And then we'll be talking about where you want to go with the business and what challenges maybe you're having. But let's start with letting them know more about you and where things are at in your business at the same time.
Sure. So my business revolves around basically just a handful of things. One, story, which has been an important part of my life since as soon as I could pick up a book, and I've always been in love with story. But my career took me in a very different route. While I loved story and I loved art, I went the corporate accounting route, got my master's degree in accounting, spent a bunch of years crunching numbers, carrying around $1 million in my pocket, going to the bank. Lots of stuff around money. But while I was competent in it and good at it, and actually really good at not only crunching the numbers, but also making sense of the systems, my heart was absolutely not in the work. And there came a point when I just felt incredibly empty and went looking for something that would fill my heart. To be totally transparent, I was pretty checked out from my heart. I was so depressed that it was dangerous, and I wasn't even conscious that I was as depressed as I was. I actually had to have a doctor point that out to me. And nowadays, I'm actually much, much more conscious of my emotions, of my well-being, and spend a lot of time, like most mornings I wake up and spend about 45 minutes in meditation and tapping and all that kind of thing, doing a lot of journaling, developing my relationship with myself, my purpose, my focus, etc. But that all largely came because I had been so checked out from it that in order for me to fill my inner reservoir, I needed to turn to some other practices than what I had been doing. And now my focus is on helping other people, particularly authors and speakers, to do the same thing so that they can share their wisdom with the world.
Nice. That's great. Okay, let's talk more about that. So tell the audience more about that actual work. So tell us more about how you help people to do that.
Sure. So a lot of people look at story as something that has happened, the story about the time that, I was driving through the mountains, or the time that, I had my midlife crisis, or whatever. Most people look at their story through the rear view mirror rather than through the windshield. And while I think both are really valuable, the hindsight is helpful in helping us to see where we are right now. For me, the real power of story comes from looking ahead and seeing, okay, based on what has happened so far in my life, what can I do today in order to build upon that? How can I live more on purpose? How can I use my gifts and talents in order to make a bigger difference in the world and to be more in alignment with my sacred purpose or divine path, or whatever, however you want to phrase it.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that when we are operating in alignment with who we truly are and what our true purpose is, then life works so much better. But so often we get caught up in, this is what I need to do. This is kind of like back in the days when I was doing corporate accounting. I was making everybody else happy except for me, because I was meeting so many obligations and expectations and so forth. And we tend to do that in our society, where we're more focused on external measures rather than internal measures. And consequently, we drive a little bit blindly and find ourselves kind of stranded out on life's highways or byways. And when we get clear on who we are, looking both back at our story that has brought us to this point today, but also looking forward and seeing, what is my North Star? What is calling me? Where is it that I want to be going? And how do I tap into not just like what's in front of me, but what's inside of me, what's trying to express itself? So my focus with my clients and my audience is to help them to get clear on what that might be for them, so that they don't feel like they're walking through what I call the creative wilderness without any kind of guidance or support.
Right. So from my understanding too, from our previous conversation, is you are helping people to find the gold mine in their story, right? It's like, what is, that's your big hook, basically. Like, what's your big goal in your story? Because that's where all the information is too about your purpose. You can find everything you want right in your story, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I believe too is that the more that we mine for our story, rather than just settling for the surface level stuff, when we mine for the real gold in our story, then it gets richer. It's kind of like, my business is called Gifts into Gold, and I use like the analogy of gold. If you were to go out and to go panning for gold somewhere out there, what you'd find would be probably not look like the gold that you have in your mind as to what that's going to look like. And gold can be anything from 1 carat to 24 carats, right? That it can be, just a touch of gold in it, or it can be pure gold. And as we refine our story, as we refine who we are and what we're trying to do, what's the nugget in our story, how are we developing it so that it's richer, it moves from just a little bit of gold to much more gold, a much greater expression of who we are and what we're trying to do in this world.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Okay, great. So basically you help people in a process through, what you call it, coaching, or how do you have a name for it, or, you know?
Well, it is coaching. I call myself the abundant story architect because I look at it kind of like, okay, where are we? What are we trying to build here? What's the architecture that we need to develop in order for us to fully realize our vision, right? You know, and just like if you've ever done any kind of, if you've ever built your own house or drafted up your own plans, you know that it's kind of like the idea of having a creative wilderness. So there's lots of space. You have maybe a specific place in mind as to where you want to build, but you only have kind of a fuzzy idea of what that's going to look like, which is why you turn to an architect who has much more experience in developing those plans, that blueprint, so that the house that you have in mind is realized and satisfies and is fulfilling for you and for the people that are served through that house. Or I actually refer to going from your shabby cottage to your fabulous castle, right?
Well, let's say we have two different people, like they both are, I don't know, they help people with money, let's say. Let's make it really easy. Like they help people with money, they're both the same age, they're both basically let's say they're both female or whatever, middle age, you know, which is, I'm just saying, like a common listener, you know, it would be in this category. They both clear blocks, they both do some business coaching, they both, if you look at paper, like the nuts and bolts, they almost look identical.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to talk to each one of them, how could you make them differentiate themselves from each other to where the right people will be so enthralled with them because of the gold mine of their story? Give me like an example of how you do that.
Sure. So we often turn to look at things like demographics or psychographics or whatever that, you know, on paper might look like, you know, for lack of a better term, we might have a duplicate or a clone of the other. But when you look a little bit deeper, when you mine into the story more fully, you realize that while on the outside they look a lot alike, on the inside they have very different experiences. You know, they probably come from different places. They, you know, were born at different times to different families. They, you know, attended different schools, different majors, different, you know, whatever. But there's always, just like, you know, there's no two people with the same thumbprint. There's no two people with the same story. Right. Once you start, you know, really digging into the essence of the story, rather than just kind of approaching it from a surface level.
Right.
And the real, I mean, money is a really good topic because money means so much to so many different people, right? I mean, there's, I believe that money is an energetic force, and it's kind of a snapshot in time. It's saying, okay, you know, I've got this much money that I'm going to invest in this thing. But if you look back at the story of that money itself, there's actually quite a story as to how that money came to your possession, why you're choosing to use it in that instance. And there's always variety, diversity in how that story shows up. Even when I was a corporate accountant, one of the things that I would frequently ask would see the numbers flowing through the system and go to those people who had responsibility for that either cost center or profit center or whatever, and dig into, okay, so tell me, why is this number this number? What's the story behind it? Because there's always a story behind it. Behind every number is a story. And when we get clear on what that story is, we can more fully understand, well, how did it get there? Why is it there right now? And where might this be heading in the future. And the same thing with us as individuals. You know, we have numbers that reflect us, you know, our height, our weight, our age, our, you know, ethnicity, or whatever. But if you look at the story behind that, you know, how did we get to where we are right now? Why are we showing up in the way that we're showing up today? Then we can see that there's a whole lot more to it than just, you know, what's presenting itself in that moment, right?
That could be a definite gold mine, right? For when you talk about things like demographics, psychographics, et cetera, things like that. I don't want to give my definition. Tell for people that may have no clue what that means. Like, what is a psychographic?
Sure. So I'll use it actually in contrast to demographics. Demographics are more those things like, you know, I am X years old. I have however many children, or I'm married or I'm not married. It's something that's quantifiable. Whereas a psychographic is more qualitative. You know, I tend to vote this way. I care this way about the environment. You know, I start my day by doing whatever. I read these magazines, that type of thing. I listen to these types of podcasts. You know, it's not something that you can tell without looking a little bit more closely and asking more narrative questions rather than numerical questions.
Yeah, like their interests, their values, their beliefs, all these different things, like
right.
A lot of stuff. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, and so yeah, the more intimately you're able to, what I see you doing, like that's another level of depth than people might normally do. Like, hey, we're gonna find out who your ideal client is. We're gonna dig into all this stuff and all that, and every, you know, like I say, every client's a reflection of you. But what you do on top of that too, and the expertise that you're bringing the people in, you know, what I'm hearing so far, I don't really know all what you do, but you know, like I'm intuiting it and seeing some of it by what you're saying. But is let's just say theoretically, you know, I could see you doing this potentially, like okay, Daniel, what's your ethnicity? Well, I'm Greek, I'm German, you know, like those are the two main ethnicities. Oh wow, so Greek. So so tell me about the story of being Greek or whatever. Oh wow, well, you know, there's a lot of drama, you know, with the Greeks, and you know, there was some of that drama in my family and everything, and that had me wonder about, you know, my German side. It was like, you know, this is a bunch of nonsense. Let's clean this up, whatever. Like, it tells you a lot about me. And then when I see drama in other people's lives, when I'm helping them, I'm like, all this drama, come on, let's get this thing straightened out. Like, you know, like that's why it speaks directly to who I am and how I help people. Like, I'm like, people, you know, like this isn't so complicated. Why are you being so dramatic about everything? But I do get them, and I am one of them at the same time. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like this, it's like that. Like I've got that in me somewhere, right? I still
Sure.
have a connection to that, right? I have a story and experience of that. So that's very these places, these like blind spots or like unexplored territory is a better way to put it. Like, you know, like unexplored territory of their story that they're not taking a look at, and the value of that, how they operate, what they do, why they do what they do, and how that's a benefit to people in the world, and how you could package and utilize that. Like, that's what I'm hearing your jam is. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's, you know, a lot of times we look at our story and we see, you know, my story is my story, you know, that we don't really appreciate the value of our story because it,
Right.
you know, we've been there every step of the way, and we don't see that our story is special and unique and powerful because we're comparing it to ourselves, and whereas other people, when they hear our story, it's like, oh wow, you did that and that happened to you. And you know, and there are two things that happen when we share ourselves like that. Is one, you know, we can see the commonalities between us. You struggled with that too. Wow, you know, you're a dramatic person. Me too. You know, or we might also see the contrast between ourselves. You know, well, you were able to do this and you did it in this way. Well, I did it this way, and it's interesting that we saw the same problem, but we took two different paths. What can I learn from that? Right. And so by looking and seeing what is common and familiar, we feel kind of a synergy or a connection with one another. But when we see our differences, our diversity, that there are other ways of approaching the same problem, then our worldview gets expanded, and we can see that the same brick wall that we've been pounding against forever doesn't have to remain that way, because there are other ways to approach that same problem, right?
Right. So I'm hearing there's something beyond, what we talked about is what you're, as part of your, maybe part of an emerging semi-hidden purpose still, like I'm sure you're aware of it, but like how you could help people, during these times, is just come in a safe environment to share their stories, because that's really the genesis of all the division that we see, right? It's like, well, you don't understand my story. Fine, let's talk about our stories. So let's, in a safe
Absolutely.
environment, we can actually hear each other, right? So that would be
Yes.
definitely part of your work, and I would say your broader work in the world.
Yes,
Like,
exactly. In fact, I believe that, just like you're saying, if we were to open up and be open not only to our own story, because honestly, one of the reasons we aren't very open to other people's stories is because we're not very open and compassionate with our own story.
Right.
I need to be this way, and because I'm not this way, there's something wrong with me, and so there's all of this resistance and baggage around that, rather than just accepting, okay, you know what, I binge watched Netflix last night, and my day isn't going the way that I'd like it to go, and I'm imperfect and whatever. And recognizing our flaws, our imperfections, helps us to have more compassion, not only for ourselves, but also for other people. And to see that, we're all trying to do the best we can, and we're all kind of walking around blindly at times, stumbling and banging our shins on the coffee table or whatever, that we're all trying to do the best we can, and we're all imperfect at it, and that is okay. Right. There's nothing wrong with being imperfect. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake. We can take and grow and learn from our own individual mistakes, but we can also learn from other people's mistakes and successes, because we're open to their story. And the more that we can be open to other people's stories, the more we can be at peace with different perspectives, different ways of doing things, different points of view, and so forth. And I believe that if we were more open with our stories, both in hearing and in expressing our stories, that there would be greater peace and harmony in the world.
Right, exactly. Great. Because as I'm tuning in for you, as we're looking at, because you're in a start, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're basically 3 to 5 years is a startup phase for a lot of businesses. So you're in the startup phase, right?
Right.
So I mean, you're brilliant at what you do, but you're in a startup phase in terms of the business. So is in the startup phase, just us really connecting, like, with the essence of who you are even more deeply for yourself. I always find that things we're teaching, we want to always learn way more about, right? Like, those are our top ones. We want to read more on those subjects maybe than any other one, right? So
Sure.
so what I'm getting is just that just the power that you have to help people in this way, because and then I also am seeing, like, this sense of disharmony and people fighting in your family is the way it comes across, if I'm picking up that accurately. And it's just like, and then you remind me of this, and I didn't have massive fighting or anything growing up, but I just remember when there's drama, I was always like, oh God, this is so stupid, right? So anyway, and I kind of get that from you, this similar vibe. You're like, this isn't right. Why are they doing it? Why are they acting like this? So,
Right.
so I feel like, we were maybe withdrawn at times. I'm guessing, but it's a feeling I get, like, maybe withdrawn at times, but then at other times when people would listen, you try to be like the one to bring understanding and peace and all that sort of. So it's kind of been part of your story probably to some level throughout your life, is my guess, is right?
You were right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and for lots of different reasons. One of the things that shows up in my family is different perspectives or different expressions. Like, for example, my dad was gay. My oldest daughter is bisexual. My youngest child is non-binary, as am I. And so, how do we bring that out into the world? How do we be okay? And how do, there was lots of tension between my mom and dad because, they were married for, gosh, I don't know, 40, 50 years. But there was always this conflict, does he love me? Does he not love me? Does she accept me? Does she not accept me? And so there was always this tension, disharmony around, am I okay being the person that I am? And just like you said, there are definitely, I was the quietest person in high school. I was very withdrawn. One of the reasons I love stories because it was a safe place for me to go. I didn't have to deal with other people's crap, or I could deal with it in a safe environment through story and, reading books and watching movies and that type of thing, so that the conflicts that I was experiencing in my own life weren't as overwhelming or traumatic as they could have been.
Yeah, so I'm getting, you get so immersed in the story, right? Like, and it's what's going through your consciousness a lot, right? Like, you be in the story, like I can see you, like you're analyzing it, playing with it, or whatever, like all these things, right? It's just the sense I get of it. So that's so cool. And so that's interesting. Yeah, so that's a part of your story that informs the story of what you're doing now, right? So it's just really cool. Okay,
Well, one of
so
the central
go
ideas that
ahead.
I use and believe in my work is that the conflict that we've always fought, we can look at that as kind of being our Achilles heel, which in a way it is, but it's also our greatest strength. Because we've dealt with this conflict for so long, we have so much more empathy for other people dealing with similar struggles. And we've likely, in the years of dealing with it, probably learned a few things about how to deal with it more effectively, right? So we can look at our challenges, our conflicts in our life as being this, Achilles heel, this burr under the saddle, but we can also look at it as the bit of sand in the oyster shell that becomes the pearl.
Right. So this is where I'll just really start going deeper into to doing the scanning. Seeing as we call it energy scan show, we've got to make room for more formalized energy scanning here, because I'm tempted to just keep asking you questions, which we'll get into that maybe a little bit more still. But let me just do a little bit of energy scanning, because I know, well, where you are and where you want to go. I'm going to articulate, and so I do it differently each time, but this time I'm going to try to articulate that based on what I'm just picking up on. Then you could reflect back to me, hey, that's kind of true or not true, or
Sure.
yeah, and then you can add into the story, right, of what we're picking up on. So let me just, so you're ready for me to go ahead and do that?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and share a number of things all at once, then we'll go through it. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, that's it. I didn't know that quite yet. So they're telling me that you yourself are a master storyteller. So you can tell an incredible story. So that's a huge, like, reminds me of other people I know that are really good at that. And so it's possible, because I keep seeing film in my mind's eye too. So I keep feeling like maybe you're helping people tell their story, maybe even on video. I mean, it's what's coming up for me. So, I'm getting that vibe. And man, could you help them create an incredible story of who they are, fleshing out their authentic story. Okay, so let's see. This is coming in. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you got some strong energy of like these. I see a pair of something like a pair of angels or something. They feel equal on each side in your field. The strong, it's like a strong, like they represent strong protection. I know that much for sure. A sense of love and compassion and strong protection from these almost seem like guardian angels or something, but like, I don't know, I'm just getting the vibe on it. And then yeah, definitely some Archangel Michael energy in there. So yeah, you've got a good balance of masculine and feminine energy that's in the upper field there. That's what, okay, good. All right. So yeah, so when we talk about just again on an energetic level, even on the masculine, it's like there's definitely the disowned masculine. And I know, yeah, you may have another perspective, but I'm just telling you the way I get it. So this own masculine energy, so it really brings, but the gift of that has been that it's really deep in your feminine, because when you're in your toxic masculinity, yeah, you know what that's like. It's like, all right, screw everybody, I'll do whatever I want, I'll have what I want. You know, you may or may not have ever gone down those roads much this lifetime, but it's in your field. So like, yeah, we don't care, we're making money, we'll do whatever it takes or whatever. So so no compassion, no love. So that's totally unacceptable to you. So it's like, oh yeah, well, we're going deep into the feminine. And so within that energy, just as we tune in, like, okay, if we go like to the sacral, not the sacral, the crown chakra, I'll start maybe there. Just loads of information and energy you can process. So you're great at processing, and you mentioned this too, synthesizing information. So you can be given all these different threads, but you can turn it into something. You know what I mean? Like whether it's stories or it could be physical too. Like it could take like sort of like a MacGyver kind of, you know, for the old show, right? MacGyver kind of. All right, I got to figure it out. Here you go. Like, you know, you blow people away with what you're able to figure out and the creativeness of the solution, and so that's really interesting. Yeah, so there's definitely an unworthiness energy in the crown. You know, it feels like abandonment energy, being left behind vibe. So these disconnections in the crown chakra, I know you talk about chakras too. So, but these disconnections can have us feel lonely, have us distrust, you know, historically, especially distrust life. Like, you know, like, man, can you even trust life to, but then again, there's another abiding faith that you have with life that's just very natural to you at the same time. So it's not like one or the other. It's everything's in there. So on both ends of that spectrum. But yeah, and then yeah, you definitely one of those people that bullheadedness. Can't stop me even if you try. I'm going to accomplish this. So that's very strong. It's like there's no doubt about it. Like that's how strong you get with things. Like you're just no doubt about it. So as long as your energy doesn't become shut down, right, then that's a different story. Then you don't care, and then who cares? It becomes the pattern. Yeah, the definitely definitely with the intuitive aspect. I feel a stronger sense with your knowing than maybe other things, but that because it's just the first one that comes through. I know that you are very compassionate and can feel energy, but I also get just a strong knower. So instant knowing is a very strong gift of yours. So that's something you definitely want to utilize and trust more. Just even trust it even more, just because the more you do that, because it's so strong. It's so strong that like, and it's so easy for you that it's possible you might question it a little bit. Like you still use it a lot, but like still you might question a little bit. Well, I don't know. Let's see. When you already know the answer. So I just feel like you have a stronger inner knower than you fully have embodied yet on that. So that would really help with your business and everything. And you've used it, along the way, but quite a bit. But it's going to be stronger, especially in this endeavor with this business. And then let's see, for the throat chakra, yeah, it's like in the past, it feels like you're more in the shadows, and you're like I don't mean this in a bad way, but it just is the way it's coming through, like the puppet master, like, hey, we're making all this stuff happen behind the scenes, like I'm making all these things happen. Like I always get a feeling like you energetically are influencing things that you know about and don't know about. And things happen and you're like, oh great, I'm glad to hear that happen. And like somehow or and don't know sometimes, like how you were part of that. So there's an energy magic that I keep picking up on with you. But yeah, coming out of the shadows, to really lead in the, like getting on the show, for example, all these sorts of things, like really leading, like being that leader there is a natural leadership you have, but in the past it's been more like, okay, I'm not appreciated enough, so I just think I'll do it in the shadows, and I don't know if people appreciate what I have to say, and I don't definitely think they'll be scared of some of the gifts and abilities I have, things like that. I'm too different, blah blah blah. Okay, the heart chakra, I just see like again on the wounded side, just on the wounded side historically, and it influences today. It just is that withdrawal, that sadness, and it's within that energy. So so your compassion is like through the roof for other people, because you're very sensitive to other people's suffering, so you'll do whatever you can to alleviate other people's suffering, whoever they are. So that's just a little tidbit on the heart chakra, power center. You've learned, you used to be with the push, make it happen. Now you're trusting your energy waves a little bit more, or a lot more maybe, but like there's more trust of the energy as a wave. It's not about pushing, it's about going with the waves. So that's nice to see. You can be very clear and bottom line with things, but then when your heart, like for most of us as like light worker type of people, when your heart opens, sometimes the boundaries temporarily can, disappear. Let's just do this thing. And like, oh, okay. And maybe there's times when you wonder if, oh wow, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Let's see, at the sacral chakra, yeah, just there. Yeah, I just feel like, again, this embodiment of this masculine energy is definitely important, because you have a strong masculine energy, um, energetically. Just again, if we go with that, and so I feel like that's something to continue to revere and honor, because you have been really honoring the feminine a lot. So I think like you're pretty good there, like in many ways. Not that there isn't always a deeper embodiment there too, but I feel like yeah, like more definitely with the inner child, with more play and creativity. Now on that level, there could be a lot more growth. So having more childlike fun definitely is huge. There's the suppressed child energy, so that definitely would be helpful. That'd be very helpful for you and your clients to bring out more of that. So how can we make this as crazy fun as possible? Let's get out the coloring books or whatever. I don't know, I don't know what it is for sure, but like it's just get a sense of toys and coloring books and fun, and it's always a new adventure kind of vibe. The root chakra, definitely there's some feeling of, again, wanting to leave the body at times in your life. Yet you've come to understand, like, really like this becoming a descended master is where it's at. And so you've recognized that now. and you're in that practice now. And yeah, that's what's going to allow you to thrive too. So and as far as like, yeah, so as far as like what wants to unfold in the business right now, I feel like, just as an idea, okay, for today, I just say like, I get logically it makes sense to focus on people that are authors and everything, but maybe it's a combo, but like I just I've been thinking this earlier and I'm feeling it too, that there's other accountants and lawyer types, or those sorts of types of people that are all locked up, and they're not honoring who they really are, and what you do, it helps honor who they really are. And so if you really niched yourself even to the point of focusing on those sorts of people, however you might describe them, that might be really golden. Like it'd be like, you're exactly the person I need, because otherwise I would feel like I don't, like I'm not like I don't feel like anybody understands me. Like nobody understands me. Only someone like you can understand like my path. Like to be not understood in the way that I haven't been understood. You've similarly not been understood, so you understand me. So that's the vibe I'm getting on that. Let's see. Yeah. Like I get like these locked up creatives that are very good at the accounting and everything like you were, but they're locked up creatives like you that want to finally break out of that box. So that's what I'm seeing there. Could be many different types of roles, not just those two things I mentioned, but it's along those lines. So I feel like there's tons of money, like tons of value. So I feel like you could charge, whatever, I mean, like 20 grand, whatever, like big amounts of money, because you could roll in so many services, help them create, whatever. Some of them might want to create storybooks or whatever creative stuff they want to come up with and share in the world. And some of them, may want to make a bunch of money. Some of them, it might be more personal development, like just self-exploration. So it's a lot of healing work, really, this whole stuff. And then it makes them more effective in their lives, their careers, and their businesses. So I don't know that it's just like helping, because the way it sounds to me is like, oh, it's going to blow up your business, which it very well can. But I also feel like it's a very deep work that you're really doing with people. And that does translate into some physical things they do, of course, creative things, it feels like. So valuing this work at a high level is going to help them value themselves at a high level. And yeah, some of them, if it really interests you, and it would make sense, is that there definitely is going to be some people that will definitely be focused on business and money as part of it. Yeah, because that makes clear sense too. So anyway, this is just the intuitive reading. Of course, when I working with somebody, we drill into, we have more and more conversations about all these different things, get into the details to flesh it all out, make sure get all the notes lined up or whatever, right? So get everything aligned. But just like this, just what I'm picking up on through the energy scanning process. So yeah, I'd love to hear what your reflections are, Steve, about what was coming through, what resonates, and what may not resonate, et cetera. Any feedback or thoughts you have.
Sure. So pretty much everything you said resonated really well. I found particularly interesting your insights around working with those who, lawyers and accountants and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Not that I've really been necessarily targeting those groups of people, but those types of people oftentimes are those who are in my community. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. People who have been, both people who are further along and people that are just coming along. One of the clients that I'm working with right now she's actually a nurse, but uh, she is also very creative. And one of the things that's showing up as we work together is just her creative expression showing up more and more. And your point about, I was a suppressed creative for a long, long time. One of the ways that I refer to it actually is it's kind of like, if you had a cast iron skillet with a lid on top of it, and you've got the stew or whatever bubbling up underneath it, but you never take the lid off, it's going to make a big mess when either the lid comes off because there's too much pressure building up underneath there, or because you finally take the lid off and it's like, just all over the place. Whereas there's a much healthier way to do that when we just allow ourselves to express, whatever that may look like, whether it's, knitting or writing or drawing or photography or whatever. But when we allow ourselves to express in the ways that we want to express, it does a lot of good. And we live in such a culture that oftentimes the culture itself suppresses that. You can't be an artist because artists are always starving. You can't
Right.
be expressive because you're not good enough. There's all this stuff around creativity and how you personally express yourself. And hopefully, I think one of the things that we're starting to see in our culture also is that there is more of a freedom to express ourselves. Whether that be, gender identity or sexual orientation or, kind of the Black Lives Matters type of thing where we're expressing ourselves and saying, what, I matter. That just because our culture has been kind of trying to put a lid on us doesn't mean that what we are going to put out into the world isn't valuable. And as we each collectively strengthen one another, then those voices become stronger and there's more healing that is available both on an individual basis as well as a more collective basis.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I keep hearing you say is just embracing our diversity and various viewpoints and all these things. So it's really like embracing everything in all these different ways. It keeps coming up. So appreciate that's all part of your purpose. Yeah, it's like come out of the closet that you're, whatever, you're gay, you're non-binary or whatever, like, hey, I'm actually Black and nobody knows it or what. I don't know, like it could be so many different things, right? So it could be all these different things. So I think that this is where I'm getting a lot of healing energy coming in with these sorts of things. Is like, this doesn't necessarily have anything directly to do with like business and money. It has to do with healing. But I do feel you have a lot of value to bring to people with the healing. But I feel like, again, like because of your background and your affinity with money, that there's going to be people that could really do really well financially through what you share too. So I think there's different aspects to your work is the vibe I get so far, from time together today.
Well, honestly, that's been a major part of my healing journey. When I was crunching numbers all the time and having a high level of comfort with regards to money, when I had the traumatic experience that I had, I left all that behind and wanted nothing to do with numbers or money or whatever. And I eventually came to the realization that I needed to heal that part of my expression, my desires. And one of the areas where there is a large need for healing is with our relationship with our money, and how that, and ultimately money is just an expression of, our lives, or our energy. It isn't separate from us. It isn't, it isn't this thing that's out there. There's a direct connection between who we are and what our money is. And the more that we can heal that relationship and help others to heal that relationship, you know, the better off we all will be, both financially and emotionally and spiritually, etc.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I've always said, like, it has to do with a relationship with money, you know, not necessarily always just the quantity at all. Like, the first thing is actually a relationship with the money, and then we could, it's like almost like we're forgetting the first most important part of it is the relationship, right? Like, I want lots of it. I don't know. It's like wanting lots of sex or lots of relationships, like with no like other reason other than to have it, right? It's like,
Right.
hey,
Well, and just like,
well,
you know,
go
each
ahead.
one of the chakras that you mentioned, you know, they all have, there's an appropriate balance for each of those chakras, you know, and what my balances are would be different than yours or somebody else's or whatever. But when we can go to either extreme on that spectrum, and, you know, where it's like, just give me all the money in the world, you know, and just like this whole greed type of thing, over stimulated, over energized. But we can also go to the other side of it where, you know, I don't want any money, and, you know, you can live this total hermit life.
Right.
It's finding that appropriate balance for us where we can be most in tune, most aligned with ourselves, with our purpose, with our community.
Right. Yeah. Well said. Yeah, it's great. That's great. So, Steve, we're at the place where it's a good time to start wrapping things up, and therefore for you to share more about where people can reach out to you. So can you tell them, there's a few different things we talked about you telling them about. So you want to tell them where they can contact you, and you have a way for them to connect with you and get a free gift, etc. So feel free to tell them about.
So I'm out there in a lot of different ways. I host the quarterly Sing Your Heart Song Summit, which just happened last week. We'll be having the next one around Valentine's Day. And it's all about, you know, bringing your voice out into the world in a powerful way. I also have the Art of Entrepreneurship Facebook group. And the gift that I'm offering is Your Path to Prosperity, which is using the 7 principles of prosperity, which align with the chakras that we just worked with. That when we get clear on where we are and where we feel most comfortable, most in alignment with each one of those energy centers, you know, that is when really good things can happen. And the gift that I have helps people to self-assess and see, you know, am I where I want to be in each of these 7 points, so that they can get to where it is that they want to go.
Nice. Okay, great. So we're going to have the links in the description, and then also there'll be a link on there for them to be able to have a chat with you too, I believe, right?
Yes, absolutely. Talkstorywithsteve.com is how you access my calendar, and I'm happy to collaborate, to, you know, have discovery sessions, whatever. I just really enjoy working with people who are on their journey to make this world a brighter place.
Awesome. Well, that's why you're on Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. So, so anyway, that's wonderful. So if people are not seeing, again, if you're on a platform where you don't have links below and all that stuff, which is possible, you can always go to, is there an easy website for them?
Oh, yes. My website is giftsintogold.com.
Okay, great. So put that in this, the links too. But yeah, I can go there to learn more about Steve. Okay, so and then if people want to reach out to me, you can do so at yoursacredpurpose.com. I offer Rock Your Sacred Purpose energy scan consultation for people who are looking for shifts, often people are either starting out and trying to get things going to the next level with their world-changing light leadership business. And maybe they've been doing it a while, but have gotten a little toasty or burned out, or come from backgrounds where they got burned out of doing it out of will. So I help you guys with learning how to, get embodied and allow yourself to move from that presence, and so that you really can, live your sacred purpose fully. So you can check that out at yoursacredpurpose.com. And then there's also a free meditation there, meditate and make money. Allow yourself to open up the energies, the chakras, so hear your guidance each day and let the energy come in of clarity and all the energy that wants to be turned on inside of you. Because as Steve mentioned too, like, it's not happening out there, it's happening in there. And so once you get the energy turned on, it's going to be happening for you. So check it out at yoursacredpurpose.com. One last thing, briefly, if you can also join me on Rock Your Sacred Purpose Facebook group, where on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central, I do a energy scanning group, basically, and channeling, and I share some wisdom on different topics. So you can directly get an energy scan from me there as well. So Rock Your Sacred Purpose Facebook group. All right, so Steve, I always like to give my guests the last word on the show. So any last words for the audience today?
Thank you, Daniel. I really enjoyed our conversation and the energy scan that you provided. The last thing my invitation to everybody is to be the bright light in someone's dark night, to find a way to help others navigate this sometimes challenging world and life. There's always hope out there. There's always something richer and brighter and more beautiful if we just keep open to it.
That's right. That's right. You can go from total darkness to total elation before you know it. Trust me and Steve both have experienced that, because we're kindred spirit in that way. We both had incredible depression. We probably both still have jags of huge downs, and then, whoa, no, I'm feeling great, right? We all do, but like some of us maybe a little more extreme than others. But so yeah, especially on an entrepreneurial journey, a lot of us experience it more. And then if you're empathic, like most of the audiences, then you experience it even more. Then it's quite a journey, but it's our path. So let's keep on rocking it, as I say, right? So appreciate you, Steve. Thank you for coming on, to be willing to be on the Energy Stand show today.
Thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate it.
And thanks to our audience, and keep on tuning in, and we'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till the next time, everyone. Listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.